I'm Tom Eaglestaff. I've earned my Vietnam Service Medal in the U.S. Navy. I served in the Navy from 1969 to 1973 and was actually had served in the Gulf of Tonkin in 1972 and 1973. That's how I qualified my Vietnam service. I am what you call the other type of Vietnam veteran that is distinguished not only by other in-country combat veterans, but also by the Veterans Administration itself. The Veterans Administration distinguishes the eligibility for their care, especially for Vietnam era veterans, by one, if you served in country and in Vietnam, you automatically qualify for services. And if you did not serve in country, then there's a level of, I believe it's 12 levels of care or levels of eligibility that you get qualified in. And if you're in the top 4 or 5, then you get services from Veterans Administration. At the time that I had applied for veterans benefits or for healthcare services, they determined that I was ineligible because, one, I did not serve in country, I didn't have any Agent Orange related type of illnesses, and I didn't have any disabilities that they could directly result from my service from 1969 to 1973. So I earned my medal, Vietnam Service Medal, a lot differently from the combat vets. We were there in 1973 in the Gulf of Tonkin, and I served on the USS Ranger CVA-61, which is the aircraft carrier, and our flight squadrons flew support bombing runs with their F-4J Phantoms and A-4 attack craft. And so we flew our sorties from the aircraft carrier, and we were in the Gulf of Tonkin when all the peace treaties were signed in the fall, and then in the winter of 1973, I believe in January or so, President Nixon declared his peace with honor. And so we had this big formation. We had to be on a flight deck, and we passed the 3 aircraft carriers with all of the Navy guys dressed in their dress whites. We spelled out peace with honor. So one carrier was peace and one was with, and then the other one was honor. And all of us that were involved in that fleet movement, we did get a picture of that, but all of the activities back in the United States didn't really make it seem honorable, because there was so much anti-war protesting and anti-war sentiment, and even we as Navy probably felt more of the brunt of it, because every time we docked, we encountered anti-war protests of some sort. I remember when we left Alameda, California, in the San Francisco Bay Area, we had to leave under the cover of darkness, because the anti-war protests would throw paint off of the Golden Gate Bridge, and they would have to close the bridge during the day, so that wouldn't happen. So we left under the cover of darkness, and we left in a hellacious storm, and the waves were so big they were coming over the front of the flight deck, and that's a pretty big wave. So there was a lot of people that were sick and everything else, and those are kind of my memories of my Vietnam service. Like I said, it was 72 and 73 when I was in the Gulf of Tonkin, and I guess as a result, I'm probably like I liken my service to some of the other combat vets, in that everybody brings a devil back from their experience in the military. Mine was probably exposure to all the alcohol, because we learned to binge drink. When we pulled into a port, you drank hard for 3 or 4 days, and then you went back out at sea. So it was a bad habit to learn. And later in my life, I suffered from alcoholism and recovered that. And I'm here where I am with the strength of my wife and family, and of course going to Sundance to pray. So that's what has helped me. I probably am not as proud of my Vietnam service as most other people are, but mainly because of that little discrimination factor, not only from the Veterans Administration, but from those veterans that served in country as well. They make that distinction that if you didn't serve with them, you weren't one of their brothers. So that's probably the big thing that keeps me from being very proud of my service. I still participate in veterans activities and that type of thing, but it's in support of those people that did serve in combat and in country in Vietnam, and served in combat and in all the latest skirmishes, Iraq, Iran, and that type of thing. I still honor them, other veterans, as much as I can, and participate in those activities, especially the burials and that type of thing. But sad things, the bad things, I guess. But other than that, I can say I'm a veteran, and I benefited from it. I got some education out of it, and I got my home out of it. It's just that I guess I signed the same contract everyone else did, and the only thing I'm mad about is probably I don't qualify for the health care. They promise you free health care for the rest of your life if you sign up, enlist, and everything else. I didn't get that. But thankfully, I'm not very ill, and in fairly good health, and I guess I can always get health care from somewhere else if I really need it. So with that, I just want to say thank you to my fellow Vietnam vets that did serve in country, and say you have my respect.